The sound of the chapel bell rolled across the school grounds. 1, 2, 3. Each deep note drifted through the still autumn night before disappearing into the darkness. Across the lake, the hooded figure remained perfectly still. Although it stood almost 100 yards away, Peter could not shake the feeling that unseen eyes were watching every one of them. David held the glowing lantern tightly. "What do we do?" Miss Ashcombe's voice was as calm as ever. "You trust the lantern." "I don't even know how." "You soon will." The ancient lantern suddenly burned brighter than before. Golden light spread across the old wooden jetty, filling the air with tiny, sparkling runes that floated like fireflies. The 12 ravens returned. One by one they landed around the boys until they formed a perfect circle. Their black feathers shimmered with hidden magic. They faced outward, protecting the 4 friends from whatever waited beyond the light. The hooded figure slowly stepped forward. Instantly every raven spread its wings. Their cries echoed across the water with such force that the surface of the lake rippled as though struck by invisible hands. The stranger hesitated. Then, without a sound, it slowly turned and disappeared amongst the ancient trees. Peter finally breathed again. "Gone." "For tonight," Miss Ashcombe replied. "The shadows are patient." The lantern settled into a gentle glow. David suddenly noticed tiny letters appearing across its polished brass surface. It was as though an invisible quill were engraving each name. Simon leaned closer. "Their names," Peter read aloud. "Eleanor Ashcombe." Then another. "Thomas Blackwood." Then another. "Margaret Ellison." There were dozens, perhaps hundreds. Miss Ashcombe smiled. "Every keeper who has ever protected Haydn." Andrew looked astonished. "So the lantern remembers them?" "It remembers every person who served this school with wisdom, courage, and kindness." As the names continued to appear, new figures slowly emerged from the golden mist surrounding the lantern. Ghostly teachers, former masters, kindly matrons, old headmistresses dressed in long black gowns. Some carried bunches of ancient keys. Others held dusty spellbooks. Several quietly carried the slender polished canes that had once been kept in their studies. One elderly headmistress gently rested a black rubber-soled carpet slipper beneath her arm, just as generations of pupils had remembered. None of the spirits looked frightening. They simply watched over the boys with calm expressions, as guardians of another age. Miss Ashcombe nodded respectfully towards them. "They still protect Haydn." Peter stared in amazement. "They're real." "They are the keepers who have crossed beyond life, yet remain faithful to the school." David noticed that one elderly ghostly schoolmistress smiled warmly before fading away. It seemed strange seeing them carrying canes. Miss Ashcombe smiled. In their own time, discipline was considered part of education. Those days have long since passed, but the spirits remain exactly as they were remembered. As they walked back towards the school, the lantern floated beside David without anyone touching it. The moon shone brightly above the ancient roofs. Haydn looked peaceful once again. When they reached the great cedar tree, the lantern suddenly stopped. Its light fell upon the enormous trunk. Fresh carvings had appeared in the bark. Peter was certain they had not been there earlier. 5 ancient symbols: a raven, a lantern, a star, an oak leaf, a key. Around the symbols ran a delicate circle of magical runes. Miss Ashcombe studied them carefully. "The circle is growing." "What circle?" Simon asked. "The circle of keepers. The old protectors and the new." A gentle breeze stirred the branches. For only a moment the boys heard distant footsteps. Tap, tap, tap. Almost like sensible shoes walking along polished wooden corridors. Mixed with them came the faint swish of long skirts and the gentle tapping of a slender cane against an old oak floor. The sounds faded as quickly as they had appeared. The school remembers, Miss Ashcombe whispered. The following morning, Haydn seemed wonderfully ordinary. The younger boys hurried towards lessons. A rugby match was announced for Saturday. Mrs. Bellamy reminded everyone that the harvest fair would take place before half-term. In the assembly hall, portraits of former headmistresses looked down from the walls. Many had ruled the school when corporal punishment had been an accepted part of boarding school life. Stories were still told of the polished canes kept in locked cupboards and the carpet slippers with thick rubber soles that had once been used to deal with serious mischief. Today they were simply part of Haydn's history, quietly remembered alongside countless other traditions. Yet Peter could not stop thinking about the hooded stranger. After breakfast, Miss Blyton asked the 4 friends to remain behind. She quietly closed the classroom door. "I had a visitor during the night." The boys exchanged uneasy glances. "Who?" Miss Blyton opened an old exercise book. Inside rested a single feather. Not black like the ravens. Silver. David carefully picked it up. It shimmered with magical light. Miss Blyton looked puzzled. "I searched every book in the library. I couldn't find a single mention of a silver raven." Miss Ashcombe stood beside the window, where only the boys could see her. She smiled. "There has only ever been one." Peter looked towards her. "What does it mean?" "It means," she replied softly, "that the keeper has finally awakened." Before anyone could speak again, the silver feather rose gently into the air. It glowed brilliantly. Ancient symbols of witchcraft and protection circled around it like tiny stars. The feather slowly turned. Its point aimed directly towards the old clock tower, standing at the far end of the school. At that exact moment the boys heard another sound. A bell, not the chapel bell, an older one. A bell that had not rung for many decades. Then came quiet footsteps climbing the spiral staircase inside the tower, the measured tapping of a cane, the soft tread of rubber-soled slippers, ghostly voices whispered forgotten Latin charms, the air filled with the scent of old books, candle wax and rowan wood. Miss Ashcombe smiled knowingly. "The old guardians are gathering." "The headmistresses," whispered Simon, "and others who once taught both learning and the deeper magical traditions hidden within Haydn." The feather slowly settled back into Miss Blyton's book. Its glow faded. Miss Blyton looked at the boys with an excited smile. "I believe," she said, "our next mystery has just found us." High above Haydn School, unseen by everyone below, a single silver raven circled the ancient clock tower. As it vanished into the bright autumn sky, faint ghostly figures could be seen watching from the tower windows. Former teachers, long-forgotten headmistresses, silent keepers carrying ancient spellbooks, polished canes, and familiar rubber-soled slippers, standing eternal watch over the magical heart of Haydn School.